Hello everyone. Welcome to our second midweek encouraging word. We're going to keep doing this until we're all back together again and things get back to normal. I want to thank Jonathan Knappenberger for filming these and for making sure everything looks great on our Facebook and our YouTube page as well. Well, I'm going to encourage you, and I want to encourage you with an answer to prayer. You know, we've prayed for 2 months for Judy Hubbard, and as many of you know, yesterday Judy had the tubes removed from her stomach and she's feeling so much better. She's kind of gingerly and tenderly on the mend. But this has been a long trial for her and for Don. But we rejoice with the Hubbards that she is back to eating soft foods on her own and is regaining her strength. It's been, as I said, a long trial for them. When I was talking to Judy today, she was talking about the importance of prayer and what she's learned about that. And she just said that God works through prayer. And one thing that she told me was that sometimes the answers to prayer are different from what we expect, but God is truly at work in the prayers of His people. And so that reminded me of one of my favorite prayer verses. This is one that I've come back to over and over through the years. You know, one of the questions that sometimes comes to mind is, how does prayer work? I mean, we pray and it goes to God, but what happens with prayer? How does it, in some ways, accomplish God's purposes? And in many ways, that's a mystery, and yet there's a passage in the book of Revelation that just opens the door a little bit and gives us a little glimpse into how our prayers work in accomplishing God's purposes in the world. So let me read that to you, and maybe you'll find this as interesting and encouraging as I do. So remember, John, the Apostle John, had these visions of heaven. I mean, he sees things that few men have ever seen. He sees the throne room of heaven, and the throne room of heaven looks like the temple. I mean, the altar of incense is there. God is worshipped there. And so this is what John sees in one of his visions. He says, another angel who had a golden censer, and we'll talk about that censer in a minute, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer with the prayers of all the saints on the golden altar before the throne. The smoke of the incense, together with the prayers of the saints, went up before God from the angel's hand. So, this is interesting. The temple that God told the Jews to build with all of its furniture reflects and is a picture of the heavenly throne room. And so we see even the same furniture in heaven as we see in the temple. And one of the key pieces of furniture right close to the throne in the Holy of Holies is this little altar. It's a golden altar, and it's the altar of incense. And of course, in the days of Jewish worship, the priest would come in and he would burn incense on that altar. Well, that's what we see in this vision of heaven. This angel comes in, he burns incense on the altar of incense, and he adds to that what? The prayers of the saints. And so our prayers are placed on this golden altar together with this perfume of this burning incense. It goes up before God, and God smells this wonderful aroma of our prayers. Now, you know, a lot of times that's where we stop when we think about prayer. That prayer is something that is important because it connects us to God, it pleases God, it deepens our affections for God and our connection with Him, and that's certainly true. But that's not where this vision stops. So let me read you what happens next. This is very interesting. So remember, this angel had the censer, and it says the angel took the censer. Okay, now what is a censer? Censer is a container for burning incense. It's made out of metal. In this case, it's a golden censer, and you take the top off somehow and fill it with coals. You put the incense on it, screw the lid back on, and of course there's some chains so that you don't burn your hand. You know, you can carry the censer on chains and it swings. And so this angel takes his golden censer, he opens it, and here's what happens. He took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it on the earth. And there came peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. So you get the vision. The angel burns the incense and our prayers before God. God smells the aroma. But then it doesn't stop. He takes the censer, he opens it, he fills it with the coals, fills it with the incense of our prayers. I kind of imagine him, getting it swinging with these golden chains, and he hurls it to earth. And what happens when it hits the earth? Things start to happen. Earthquakes, thunder, rumblings, lightning. What are these things? Well, these are all symbolic pictures of God at work in this world. I mean, that's what these things symbolize, especially in Old Testament imagery. The point being that it's the prayers of God's people that start to accomplish God's purposes here on earth. And so you kind of put this picture together, and it's kind of remarkable that we pray, our prayers go up to God, they please Him, and then somehow He takes our prayers and He gives them to His mighty angels, who then in some mysterious way put them to work in this world, in human history, working out God's purposes. Now, of course, that raises lots of other questions. I mean, what if we don't pray? Do God's purposes, are they still accomplished? Of course they are. And yet, the exciting thing about this, and this is what Judy was talking about to me today, and that is that as we pray, our prayers are used to accomplish God's purposes here on earth. So I know all of you are praying, especially during this time, you're praying for your loved ones who are struggling. You're praying for your church. You're praying for your country and your world and God's kingdom around this world. And I just want to say, keep it up. We're going to see God using our prayers in great and wonderful ways in coming months and years. Well, I'll see you again on the Lord's Day morning. We're going to record our service like we did last week, and it'll be available on Facebook and YouTube, and we can all gather together at 9 a.m. in our homes and worship, and look forward to the time where we're back together again in God's house. Goodbye, and God bless you.